Earlier this week, 12 Democrat candidates ascended on Westerville, Ohio, to be a part of round 4 of the Democrat debates. These candidates, who have a combined political experience that exceeds 200 years, fought all over each other to demonstrate who was the best at blaming President Donald Trump for all the problems that we have on our current American political landscape. Today, we're going to uncover some of the more poignant moments from that debate and try to understand if anyone got any closer to establishing themselves as the front runner as we get closer and closer to 2020. Welcome to the Wright Brothers. Contrary to popular belief, I actually watch CNN quite regularly as a way to try to understand what the other side really is thinking, as a way to better formulate my thoughts about the issues as they happen. For this Democrat debate, what I wanted to see was how they were going to frame their earlier stances compared to what we're going through currently in the American political sphere. What I saw really was just more of the same. Some of y'all may remember that we did not cover Democrat debates round 3, mainly just because nothing new really was said. In this debate, it can be argued nothing new was said once again, but it was said in a more interesting facet. Now, this was a very long debate. This was 3 hours long, and I suffered through it so you wouldn't have to. So you're welcome in advance. But what I noticed from the very beginning was there was one new face on the stage, and that was billionaire Tom Steyer. And Tom Steyer did his best to make his very first soundbite count by immediately going after President Donald Trump himself.
So I just want to start by reminding everybody that every candidate here is more decent, more coherent, and more patriotic than the criminal in the White House.
Now, the best way I can really describe Tom Steyer's awkward pause at the end of his volley against the current president was, it was very similar to Jeb Bush's please clap moment from a few years ago.
Please clap.
It never gets old. Now, I wish I could say that this was the end of the attacks against President Trump, as Democrats instead looked inward to see what they could best do to establish themselves as the front runners. But unfortunately, debates round 4 actually had a very common theme, and that theme was attacking President Trump at every step and turn. Now, it bears mentioning that Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren really are the two front runners going into this debate, and you kind of saw that they were the main targets on stage as multiple candidates took their opportunities to take swipes at them and try to get their own poll numbers up as we inch ever closer to the election.
Joe, you talked about working with Republicans and getting things done. But you know what you also got done, and I say this as a good friend. You got the disastrous war in Iraq done.
I want to give a reality check here to Elizabeth, because no one on this stage wants to protect billionaires. Not even the billionaire wants to protect billionaires.
Now, I can't have been the only one who thought this, but while Elizabeth Warren was getting attacked pretty steadily throughout the night, it seemed like the questions directed towards Joe Biden, for the most part, were those easy questions, those softball or layup questions, if you will, where they were trying to ask him questions where he could position himself in the best possible light. But even that didn't go all the way through the debate, as we saw several moments of heated exchanges between Joe Biden and several other people as well, as they took their aim at him and didn't focus their ire solely on Elizabeth Warren.
I got votes for that bill. I convinced people to vote for it. So let's get those things straight too.
Robert Francis O'Rourke was questioned extensively on what his gun buyback, aka gun confiscation program, would look like, and he really didn't have a straight answer one way or the other exactly how that would be enforced and how it would be ensured that the average American who does own firearms would turn them over if he was elected president and enacted this law.
Exactly how are you going to take away weapons from people who do not want to give them up and you don't know where they are?
The expectation is that Americans will follow the law. I believe in this country. I believe in my fellow Americans. I believe that they will do the right thing.
Thank you.
Now, don't forget, Andrew Yang is still in the race. And instead of talking so much about universal basic income this time, that plan where every American will get $1,000 a month, what he and Beto did actually was kind of shift gears a bit and talk more about a more pressing issue and a more feasible one, Democrats could argue. And that plan was finding ways to decriminalize small amounts of opiates, including heroin.
Mr. Yang, you want to decriminalize the possession and use of small amounts of opioids, including heroin. How would that solve the crisis?
That's exactly right.
Kamala Harris, hailing from San Francisco, the opioid epidemic capital of the world, I was almost positive that she was going to piggyback on Andrew Yang and Beto's statements about decriminalizing small amounts of opioids, but she actually shifted gears a bit and instead was lamenting the fact that Elizabeth Warren didn't support her idea to try to force Twitter to delete President Trump's Twitter account.
Senator Warren, I just want to say that I was surprised to hear that you did not agree with me that on this subject of what should be the rules around corporate responsibility for these big tech companies, when I called on Twitter to suspend Donald Trump's account, that you did not agree.
Now, if Elizabeth Warren really wanted to stick it to Kamala Harris, she could have just said that she doesn't support getting President Trump's Twitter taken away because she supports the First Amendment. But Elizabeth Warren possibly is not the strongest proponent of the First Amendment, and we saw that as evidenced in the way she chose to respond to the question.
If we're going to talk seriously about breaking up big tech, then we should ask if people are taking money from the big tech executives.
As the debate rolled on into debate hours 2 and 3, it was pretty much just the same topics we'd already heard these candidates talk about in the past. All of them talked about the women's right to choose. All of them supported in some form or fashion the impeachment inquiry against President Trump.
The need to impeach the impeachment.
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 If we do not hold him to account,
No one is above the law.
so I swore an oath to do my job as a senator, do my duty. This president has violated his, I will do mine.
What they didn't talk about, though, was the ongoing controversy at ABC, where ABC was actually caught manipulating footage over the Kurdish situation that's unfolding. But no one was ever asked any questions about what they thought about the media's blatant manipulation of the footage to paint President Trump once again in a negative light. Now, what I will say is one of the hardest things during the debates is trying to remain objective and trying to take notes and really follow along with the candidates as they go from one issue to another. Amy Klobuchar, you may remember her, she was the candidate who actually is a climate change activist who gave her speech, her candidacy speech in a blizzard. But Klobuchar said that Ohio, the state they were debating in, actually had lost jobs. And I actually wanted to check and make sure she was right. So I decided to be the fact checker myself. And I checked with the Ohio Bureau of Labor Statistics. And that fact actually is not really quite true. As the debate continued, all the candidates really seemed to be preoccupied with was trying to make sure that they made their time count when they had the chance to actually speak. We had Cory Booker, making sure that you knew that he was vegan.
And I want to say one last thing, and I feel qualified to say this as the vegan on the stage.
We had Elizabeth Warren dodging the question that was asked directly to her about whether or not taxes would go up for the middle class with her proposals.
Medicare for all. Will you raise taxes on the middle class to pay for it? Yes or no?
Yes or no? Yes or no?
So I have made clear what my principles are here.
And the biggest issue that was danced around all night was the fact that even though there was a billionaire on the stage in Tom Steyer, both Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren refrained from calling him out for being a billionaire, even though they claimed to be against the 1%. Regarding abortion, aka the right to choose, aka the right to murder unborn children, the average candidate really seemed to make it a priority to address the need to have access for safe and legal abortions, saying that if abortions were made illegal, it would just force women who are in search of abortions to find ways to procure them illegally. And it really bears mentioning that this same argument could honestly be applied to the gun debate as well. If you try to make something illegal, people who still want to get it will find ways to get it. But the Democrats still don't seem to understand the hypocrisy behind their stance as it relates to abortion compared to how it relates to gun control. Now, here at the Wright Brothers, we're not one of those channels that just are contrarians in every form and fashion. There actually was one good point that was brought up by San Antonio's Julian Castro as it related to enforcing actually term limits. It's something that I, and honestly any American, should support.
I wouldn't pack the court. I think the plan that Mayor Pete mentioned is an interesting one, but I actually believe if we were selecting from one of those things, that the smarter move might be to look at term limits.
But overall, if you were to judge this debate purely off what was said over those entire 180 minutes, it really wasn't that much new. No one really learned anything new about anybody else. And it was really, like I said before, nothing more than a chance for the candidates to once again demonstrate how much they hate President Trump and demonstrate how much they can't wait to try to take him down in 2020. If I had to pick a winner from round 4, I'd probably say that winner was Pete Buttigieg, actually. No, not because he looked at Elizabeth Warren at one point with disdain, marking the first time that I and a gay man both looked at a woman the exact same way, but probably just because he was the one who seemed to avoid getting stuck in the verbal pugilism that was going on the stage all night. He actually sounded fairly reasonable compared to some of his competitors.
Well, we heard it tonight. A yes or no question that didn't get a yes or no answer.
And I'm wondering what his poll numbers will look like as the debate fully settles in to the American consciousness. So debate round 4 is in the books, and now we wait for debate round 5. Yes, these are still not over. What I want to know is, what were your thoughts on debate round 4? If you did get a chance to watch, if you didn't, what were your thoughts on what we covered today? I do want to hear from you. We love engaging with our base. For those of you who want to engage with us on an even deeper level, please feel free to check out our Facebook page, The Wright Brothers IPID. It's run by Trey Felder, and yes, he is still around. He's just busy this week. He will be back in a future episode. But we also want to encourage those of you who are inclined to support us financially through Patreon to please do so at the link below in the description box. We appreciate those of you who've already taken it upon yourself to support us in this fashion. Everything you see and hear around us comes at a cost, which is a cost we happily incur because we want to bring you a product that's actually worth watching, and it gives me, as the editor, nothing but joy to do that for you. So let us know what your thoughts were in the comments section down below. Let us know who you think came out a little better than they might have gone into the debates. We do want to hear from you. The last thing we'll ask you to do is smash that like button, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, please press that subscribe button and that bell so you're notified every time we release a new video. But that's all we have for debate round 4, and we will see you in the next one.
The first revolution is when you change your mind about how you look at things and see that there might be another way to look at it that you have not been shown. The revolution will not be televised, and be no rerun, brothers and sisters. The revolution will be live.